You don't belong here. Move to economy where your kind fits. That's what she said, loud, clear, and without a trace of hesitation. A flight attendant in a tailored uniform, standing in front of a black man she hadn't even taken the time to look in the eye. That one line set off a chain of events that no one on that plane would ever forget, especially not her. And in just 6 minutes, she would regret every word she said. But before we dive in, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a story that shines light where others turn away. And if this one moves you like I think it will, go ahead and tap that like button. It helps more than you know. Now let me walk you into the plush, quiet cabin of Pinnacle Airlines Flight 256, from Atlanta to New York. It was June 18th, just after 5 p.m. Eastern. The seats were soft leather, the air cool and still. Everything seemed calm. Until Marcus Reynolds boarded. He was wearing a navy hoodie and dark jeans. Nothing flashy, just a regular man. Or so they thought. But Marcus wasn't just any passenger. He was the CEO of Pinnacle Airlines. Not only that, he owned 30% of the entire company. He built his fortune from nothing. No shortcuts, no handouts. And today, he boarded that plane not to be pampered in first class, but to see the truth behind the flood of complaints he'd been hearing. People said Pinnacle staff treated passengers of color unfairly, especially when they didn't look wealthy. So Marcus decided to go undercover, dressed like an everyday man, to see it for himself. He took seat 2A. It was his seat. His name was on it. He had the boarding pass, the platinum card, the ID, all of it. But none of that mattered to Claire Morgan. She was 38, white, and sharp-tongued. As soon as she saw Marcus, her eyebrows lifted. "Excuse me," she said, fake sweet. "This seat isn't for you. It's reserved for a VIP." Marcus looked confused, then calm. "That's me," he replied. "I'm in 2A. Got my boarding pass right here." Claire didn't even glance at the pass. She waved over her colleague, Sarah Bennett, who was just as quick to judge. Sarah looked Marcus up and down, then scoffed. "You don't look first class," she muttered under her breath. But Marcus heard it. So did a few passengers nearby. A few rows behind. James Rivera, a 46-year-old Latino man traveling home to see his kids, started recording quietly on his phone. And in the galley, trainee flight attendant Ava Brooks noticed Claire and Sarah exchange a smug glance. Ava had heard stories like this, but seeing it with her own eyes was different. Claire stepped forward, snatched the boarding pass from Marcus's hand, and tore it straight down the middle. "Get to economy," she said. "This seat is going to Miss Harrison." Marcus blinked, calm but firm. "That's not how this works." He pulled out his platinum card and his Georgia driver's license. Claire didn't even glance. "These could be fake," she snapped. "I've seen people try to scam their way up here before. You're not the first." Sarah smirked. "We'll call security if we have to." And they did. Officer Liam Carter, tall, stocky, white, showed up at the cabin entrance. "You can leave the plane or move to economy," he said flatly. "Don't push this." Meanwhile, James kept filming, his hands steady, heart racing. He didn't know who Marcus was, but he knew what injustice looked like. Ava stepped forward. "His pass was valid," she said, soft but certain. "I saw it." Claire shot her a look. "Stay in your place." Ava, Ryan Walsh, the captain, came into the cabin next. "Is there a problem here?" Claire quickly painted Marcus as a disruptive passenger trying to scam his way into first class. Ryan didn't ask questions. "Sir, if you won't comply, we'll have to remove you." Marcus kept his voice level. "Are you even looking at the documents I gave you?" "I don't need to," Ryan said. "It's obvious." That word stung. Obvious. As if Marcus's skin color and hoodie were all the proof Ryan needed. Marcus hit record on his phone. Discreetly. "Log this," he whispered into his headset mic, on the other end. His assistant, Lauren Miles, answered. "Recording's active. Got it." James leaned over to a nearby passenger and whispered, "This is going viral. Watch." In the galley. Claire turned to Sarah and said, clear enough for James to catch on his phone's mic, "He doesn't belong in first class. Let's be real." Sarah laughed. "Definitely not our usual type." Ava overheard it too, and quietly hit record on her own phone. At this point, Marcus had every right to raise his voice, but he didn't. Instead, he stood up, pulled out his phone again, and dialed Lauren. "Just checking you got all of that?" "Everything," she confirmed. "Audio's clear." "Good," he said. "Send a copy to Elena." Elena Torres, Pinnacle's managing director. While Claire was gloating about giving 2A to Elizabeth Harrison, a wealthy white woman boarding with champagne in hand. James turned his camera toward the front. Marcus stood still, breathing deep. Then Liam stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Don't make this harder than it has to be." "I'm not making anything hard," Marcus replied. "You are," Claire returned with a fake smile. "You've got a nice seat in economy. You should be grateful." "For what?" Marcus asked. "Being profiled?" Claire held up a tablet with the seating chart. "There's no record of you in 2A, she said. Marcus looked directly at her. "I saw you change it." "Excuse me?" "You altered the record." Marcus said. "I saw the screen flash when you updated the name." James caught that too, whispering into his phone camera. "She just changed the log." Ava took a breath. "This is wrong," she said. Claire glared at her. "You're new. Stay out of this." "Or maybe," Ava said, "you're scared of what the truth looks like on tape." The passengers around them were watching now, silent, wide-eyed. Claire whispered to Sarah, "Just say there was a mix-up. Blame the system." Sarah shook her head. "This is gonna blow back on us." James zoomed in. "She's confessing," he muttered. Meanwhile, Marcus stared at seat 2A, now occupied by Elizabeth. He thought about all the people who'd sent in complaints, ignored, dismissed, shut down. He had built Pinnacle so no one else would go through what he had at 20 years old, when he was denied boarding for wearing sneakers. And now here he was, 30 years later, reliving it at the hands of his own employees. He said nothing for a moment, just stared at Claire. Then, with quiet control, he said, "You're ruining this airline from the inside out." Claire snorted. "You're lucky we're not calling the cops," Marcus whispered into the mic again. "We'll handle this after landing." Lauren's voice came through. Steady. "Understood." Claire returned to the galley, laughing with Sarah. "Let's get this flight moving," she said. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the next 6 minutes would turn her laughter into silence, her smirk into panic, and her job into history. Marcus hadn't moved, not an inch. He stayed planted right there in 2A, his seat, holding steady even as the pressure around him built like a boiling kettle. Ryan Walsh, the captain, stormed back into the first-class cabin, eyes sharp, voice louder this time. "You've got 2 choices," he snapped, not even pretending to stay calm. "Move to economy, or you're getting off this flight." The words came fast and cold, with no room for conversation. Claire stood next to him with arms crossed, and Sarah just behind. Eyes rolling, lips curled into a smirk. Claire added, "You're not even booked here. You're a scammer." Marcus looked straight at her, expression steady. "I showed you my ID, my card, and my boarding pass, and you tore it up." Sarah chuckled, loud enough to sting. "People like you don't belong in this part of the plane. You know that." Those words hit hard. "People like you." They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. And Liam Carter, the security officer, stepped closer again. arms at his side like he was ready to drag someone off that plane. "Don't make this harder than it already is," Liam warned. Ava Brooks, the trainee flight attendant, still standing by the galley, couldn't hold her tongue any longer. "His pass was valid," she said, voice shaking a little but firm enough to be heard. "I saw it. I was right there." But Ryan didn't care. He brushed her off like she wasn't even in the room. "Let the real staff handle this," he muttered, turning his focus back on Marcus. And that's when James Rivera, the Latino passenger from row 3C, caught something that made his stomach turn. Claire and Sarah had stepped back into the galley, whispering again. But they weren't whispering quietly enough. James had been filming the entire time, quietly, without saying a word. Now he zoomed in as Claire sneered. "His hoodie's probably worth more than his seat. What a joke." Sarah laughed. "Let him cry about it on TikTok or something." James's camera caught every word, every sneer, every side-eye. His finger tapped the screen and posted the video directly to X and TikTok. No caption, just raw video. By the time he glanced back at the screen 2 rows ahead, the post had already hit 100 views in the first minute. He didn't smile. This wasn't funny. But his eyes narrowed. He knew what he was doing. In the front row, Marcus stayed seated, breathing slow and deep. He spoke softly into his mic again. "Lauren, update me." His assistant answered instantly. "Recording's clean. I've started the internal incident file. Send a copy of the last 5 minutes to Elena." Marcus said. "She needs to hear how they talk." "Done," Lauren replied. "We've got backup." Ava had quietly started her own recording too, holding her phone just behind a napkin tray, catching every word Ryan and Claire had said about problem passengers and flagging behavior. The tone, the dismissal, the judgment. It was all there. And still. Claire pushed harder. "We've got policies, sir," she said, voice syrupy now, faking patience. "And one of those policies says we can reassign seats at our discretion." "That's not what it says," Marcus replied, finally raising his voice just a bit. "Not unless there's a safety or maintenance issue." "Well," Ryan interrupted, "we consider this a potential safety concern." Marcus stood up now, slowly, deliberately. "Because I'm sitting in my assigned seat with proper ID and documentation?" Ryan shrugged. "You're raising your voice, refusing to comply." Marcus didn't blink. "I'm refusing to be profiled." Ava spoke up again, her voice a little stronger. "Captain, you're ignoring a valid boarding pass. I saw him board. I scanned it." Claire spun around. "You're a trainee. You don't speak over command staff." "Then demote me," Ava said quietly. "But I'm not lying for anyone." Back in the galley, James filmed again. Claire and Sarah were now talking about how to update the digital seating log. "Just remove his name," Claire whispered. "Say it was a booking error. Nobody checks those logs anyway." Sarah hesitated. "You sure about this?" "He'll be gone in 5 minutes," Claire replied. "Just log Elizabeth Harrison for 2A instead." James caught it all. Names, voices. The tap of Claire's finger as she edited the seating chart on her tablet, at the 2-minute mark. His video was already over 500 views. No tags, no boost, just truth. In the front. Marcus was quiet again, thinking. "This is why I built Pinnacle Airlines," he told himself. "To fight this exact kind of garbage." The scene reminded him too much of 25 years ago when he'd been kicked off a plane for wearing sneakers and sweatpants. Same look from the staff, same tone. They didn't see a young man who had just earned his first paycheck. They saw someone who didn't fit. That moment had lit a fire in him, and he'd carried it all the way to the top. Now, here he was again, being told to sit at the back, just in more polished words. Lauren's voice buzzed in his ear. "Copy of the video sent to Elena. She's watching it now." Marcus nodded. Thank you. Ava stepped toward him, trembling but resolute. I believe you, she said softly. And I recorded Ryan, just in case they try to twist this. You're brave, Marcus whispered back. Don't stop now. Claire returned to the front, looking smug. Okay, we've resolved the log issue, she announced. Mr. Reynolds has been reassigned to 21C. I haven't accepted any reassignment, Marcus said. Claire waved a hand. It's done. Take your new seat, or take the next flight, Sarah added, or we'll let Liam escort you. Liam didn't speak, but he stepped forward. Looking ready to move, James finally stood up. I'm posting this, right now. Claire turned to him, furious. You can't record us. It's against policy. It's against policy to tear up a man's boarding pass and lie. James shot back. This video's live. Claire glanced down. You're bluffing. Check the internet, James replied. Or wait 5 more minutes when the media calls. The moment hung heavy. Sarah was starting to look nervous. Her eyes darted to Ava. He's serious, she whispered. And if that video goes viral? Ava stepped forward. It already is. As if on cue. James's phone buzzed with notifications. 2,000 views at the 3-minute mark. Just momentum. Marcus looked around at the other passengers. Many were watching now, silent, unsure, some nodding, some with phones already in hand. You still think I'm nobody? Marcus asked, voice low, calm. You still want to double down on this lie? Ryan stiffened. This isn't personal. It's always personal when you profile someone, Marcus replied. It's always personal when someone tears up your identity and calls it protocol. Claire opened her mouth, then shut it again. Marcus sat back down in 2A, reclaiming the space like it was his office chair. You've crossed a line, he said, eyes locked on Ryan. And we're going to deal with that. After landing. Ava stood next to him. I'm with Marcus, James added. This whole plane's about to be... And with one last glare, Claire retreated to the galley, but she didn't know the storm was just starting. It should have been over. A passenger sitting in his rightful seat, with his ID, his card, and now the whole cabin watching. But instead, the conflict exploded. Captain Ryan Walsh, clearly rattled but too proud to back down, stepped forward, tapped the intercom, and made the worst announcement of his career. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a disruption in the first-class cabin. We're asking for cooperation while we remove a passenger who refuses to follow crew instructions. The words echoed through the cabin like a slap across the face. Passengers gasped. James Rivera's phone captured every second, his latest video now pushing 5,000 views at the 4-minute mark. He just announced to the entire plane that Marcus is being disruptive. James whispered into the mic. They're digging their own grave. Marcus remained calm, seated in 2A, hands resting gently on the armrests. He didn't flinch. His silence said more than yelling ever could. Liam Carter, the security officer, moved in with a colder tone than before. This is your last warning, he said. You can leave this seat now or we'll physically escort you off the aircraft. Ava Brooks, the trainee who had been quietly recording, stood beside Marcus now. He's not moving, and you shouldn't be doing this. Liam narrowed his eyes. You're out of line. I'd rather be out of line than silent, Ava replied. Then, Claire returned from the galley with a smirk. Captain says we proceed, and Sarah added, almost like a chorus line. Economy's waiting. James, still recording, whispered to the camera. This is racial bias happening live. You hear how they talk to him? Listen. Meanwhile, Marcus turned his head just slightly toward the passengers behind him. That's when something shifted. The tension snapped, one by one. Passengers began to stand up. A woman in seat 3A turned to Liam. He's done nothing wrong, a man in 4B added. I saw the boarding pass before she tore it up. Another voice chimed in. You're harassing him. And just like that, the first-class cabin began forming a human barrier, not shouting, not fighting, but quietly rising, putting bodies between Marcus and the crew. Ryan looked stunned. This is a security risk, he barked. They're interfering. But no one backed down. James turned his camera to Ava, who raised her phone and tapped the screen. Here's what the captain said when he thought no one was listening, she said, playing her recording for nearby passengers. Ryan's voice, clear as day, said, He's probably just another troublemaker trying to play victim. Murmurs swept through the cabin. Someone muttered, Unbelievable. Claire's face drained of color. Sarah looked away. In the galley, she whispered, We should have shut up. Marcus stayed seated, letting the truth speak for itself. He tapped his earpiece. Lauren? I'm here, she answered. We've sent the full recording to Elena. She's watching now. Good, he replied. Tell her we'll need that meeting after landing. Then he looked up, straight at Ryan. You just told an entire plane full of people that I'm disruptive, when all I did was sit down in the seat I paid for. Ryan clenched his jaw. You refused crew instruction, because it was based on bias. Marcus said, You judged me from the moment I boarded, not because of what I did, but because of what I looked like. Claire tried to step in. We have protocols. Protocols? Ava interrupted. He followed every step. You're the ones rewriting seat logs, tearing up documents, mocking him in the galley. That's a serious accusation, Ryan muttered. Ava held up her phone. So is this recording? Sarah's voice trembled. Ryan, we need to stop. Enough, Ryan snapped, but it was too late. The passengers were no longer quiet. They weren't just standing, they were speaking. He deserves an apology. You need to back off. This is disgusting. What are you going to do now, Captain? Kick us all off? James turned the camera toward Marcus again. People need to see what standing up looks like, he said. This is how you expose bias, with truth, with recordings, and with each other. Claire leaned in toward Ryan. We're losing control of the cabin. We never had it, Ryan muttered back. Marcus leaned forward slightly, his voice calm but firm. You've got one chance to make this right before it follows you off this plane and into the media, your job records, and every search engine out there. Claire's hands shook. Sarah sat down on the jump seat, burying her face. Liam paused, clearly unsure now. He looked around at the standing passengers, the cameras, the weight of it all pressing in. Captain, he said quietly, maybe we need to think this through. Ryan said nothing. His eyes flicked to Ava, then to James, and finally back to Marcus, whose calm had never broken once. Marcus lifted his phone again. Lauren, send that file to corporate comms. Elena will want a press plan in place before we land. Already done, she said. James's phone buzzed. 1,000 views. It was spreading. The moment was snowballing. Claire and Sarah whispered about whether they could walk back the forged log. Marcus overheard. It's too late for that, he said. The truth's already out. Ava stepped forward, her voice stronger now. Passengers have filed complaints like this before. You all ignored them. You said there was no proof. Now you've got proof in surround sound. This wasn't supposed to happen like this, Sarah whispered. But it did, Marcus replied. Because bias never stays hidden forever. It always cracks under pressure. And that's when Ryan, the man who had backed his crew through every insult and lie, finally started to falter. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. James turned the camera back to the captain. Anything you want to say now? Ryan looked at Marcus. Who are you? He asked. Voice hoarse. Marcus paused, but didn't answer. Not yet. You'll know soon, he said. But for now, you should start thinking about what kind of leader you want to be when you're faced with a mess of your own making. Ava turned to Liam. You gonna arrest all of us now? Or are you gonna listen? Liam sighed, hands dropping to his sides. I just wanted to keep things calm, he said. Quieter now. Then let calm start with truth. Marcus replied, because this flight's already part of history, the kind that people remember. James hit publish on the second video. 15,000 views. Still spreading. The first-class cabin, once tense and rigid, was now grounded in resolve. And Marcus, seated in 2A, remained exactly where he belonged, but this time, with a quiet army standing behind him. Just when it seemed the flight crew might back off, the pressure doubled down. Captain Ryan Walsh, red-faced and desperate to reassert control, returned to the front cabin with his jaw clenched and voice tight. Claire, Sarah, Liam, I want him out of that seat now, he said, nodding toward Marcus. Use whatever authority you need. We're done playing games. Claire stepped forward, her voice clipped and sharp. Sir, we're removing you from the first-class cabin. Last chance to move. Marcus didn't blink. He just turned his phone slightly toward her and hit record again. Go ahead, he said quietly. This is still your airline too, isn't it? She snapped, not knowing how right she was, or how wrong she was about who she was talking to. Liam Carter stepped up, grabbing Marcus's elbow, not violently, but firm enough to draw gasps from several passengers. Let's not make this into something bigger than it needs to be, Liam said under his breath. I'm asking you to cooperate. Marcus didn't pull away, but he didn't stand either. It's already bigger than you think, he said calmly, just a few rows back. James Rivera stood up again, phone still recording, camera locked on Liam's grip. He's not resisting. You're grabbing him. James called out. We're all witnesses. Claire moved toward the galley, frantically checking her tablet, likely double-checking the altered seat log. But it didn't matter now. The lie had already cracked open, in the corner. Sarah was pacing, mumbling to herself. Ava Brooks, steady now, stepped directly between Marcus and Liam. You're crossing a line, she said to the officer. That man is sitting in the seat he was assigned. I saw the pass before Claire ripped it up. I scanned it. You don't get to erase that just because of how he looks. Ryan stepped closer, his voice now strained. This isn't your decision. Ava, step aside. I'm doing my job, Ava said firmly. My job is safety. This, what you're doing, is not safe. You're escalating something that started with a boarding pass and a hoodie. A small, older woman in seat 2D rose next, eyes narrowed, voice calm but cold. I saw her tear it up, she said, pointing to Claire. This whole thing is a setup. Another passenger behind her added. Yeah, and I heard them in the galley, saying he doesn't belong here. Liam looked around. His hand was still on Marcus's arm, but he hadn't moved. The moment had frozen. Then came the shift, one by one. Passengers began rising, not angry, not shouting, but steady, deliberate. They moved forward, quietly closing ranks. Someone stepped into the aisle between Marcus and the galley. Another moved behind Liam, hands up, not touching, just present. A wall of support began to form, quiet and powerful. You're not dragging him anywhere, one man said softly. We won't let you. Ryan's face paled. Claire looked rattled. Sarah whispered. We need to stop. This is going too far. But Ryan doubled down. This is a violation of FAA protocol. We can't have mutiny on board. It's not mutiny, Marcus said, still seated, voice even. It's clarity. You created this. You fed this with your assumptions, your disrespect, and your refusal to even look at the facts. Then his phone buzzed in his palm. Lauren, he answered without hesitation. We've got the recordings, she said. Both yours and Ava's. Audio is clean, time-stamped. Elena's seen it. She's already briefed corporate. Good, Marcus replied. Set a meeting for after we land. I want full accountability. Already on the calendar, Lauren confirmed. Elena's bringing legal and ops leadership. Ryan glanced at the phone, hearing part of the conversation. Who's Elena? He asked. Marcus didn't answer. Not yet. Claire tried to regain control. You're being disruptive, she snapped again. This is on camera, James said, still filming. You keep saying that, but it's your behavior that's the disruption. This can't go viral, Sarah whispered to Claire. Too late, Ava said, eyes locked on Sarah. It already is. You're part of the problem, and now everyone can see it. Liam finally released Marcus's arm and took a step back. His shoulders sagged a little. I didn't sign up for this, he muttered. I just wanted to de-escalate. Then de-escalate, Marcus said gently. Tell your captain this passenger is seated where he belongs, and the rest of the cabin agrees. By now, James's first post had passed 1,000 views. Notifications were flooding in, screenshots, shares, reposts, and with every new ding, another passenger stood. The cabin was no longer under Ryan's command. It was under Truth's. Claire stared at her tablet again, the altered log now a damning piece of evidence. She looked up at Marcus, eyes wavering. I didn't mean for it to go like this. You never do, Marcus replied. That's the danger of bias. It feels normal until it's caught. Liam, still standing in silence, finally spoke. I need to report this. The recordings. Everything. You do that, Marcus said. But make sure the report includes every lie you heard. Claire turned to Ryan. We've lost this. No, Marcus said, rising from his seat for the first time, slow and controlled, towering in presence. You lost it the moment you looked at me and decided I didn't belong. That's what this is about. The cabin was quiet now, not tense, not anymore. There was something else in the air, something stronger. Resolve. Passengers stood shoulder to shoulder. Ava was no longer a trainee in anyone's eyes. She was the only crew member they trusted. Liam stepped back toward the cockpit, radio in hand, voice low. We're standing down on the removal. No threat. Passenger remains in assigned seat. Ryan didn't fight him. He turned and walked away, into the cockpit, not saying another word. Claire followed, hollow and pale. Sarah sat down, eyes glassy. James looked at Marcus. You okay? Marcus nodded once. Yeah. Let's just get to New York. And with that, the barrier of passengers slowly sat down again. No announcement, no orders, just a collective breath, a quiet knowing. Lauren's voice returned in Marcus's ear. Elena says she'll see you at 9 a.m. sharp. She's looped in HR. Wants your recordings played first. Perfect, Marcus replied. We'll let the truth speak. Ava sat next to him briefly. You didn't have to go through this, sir. You shouldn't have. Neither should anyone else, Marcus said. That's the point. James's latest video hit 1,000 views, and they hadn't even taken off yet. For a moment, the cabin was quiet, too quiet. The confrontation had paused, but tension still sat in the air like humidity before a storm. Ryan was still in the cockpit, Claire and Sarah pretending to handle service in silence, and Liam lingering near the galley, shifting his weight like a man realizing he'd been standing on the wrong side of the line. James Rivera had just posted another video, one showing Ava playing the audio recording of the captain's slurs, and within seconds, it crossed 15,000 views. Every phone buzzed, every whisper in the cabin carried the same three questions. Who is this man? Why is he so calm? And why does the crew suddenly look terrified? James, still filming from the side, slowly lowered his phone and leaned toward Marcus. "I just realized something," he said. "You're not just any passenger, are you?" Marcus glanced up, calm as ever, and finally gave the world what it had been waiting for. He stood slowly, turned to face the cabin, and spoke, not loud, not angry, but with the kind of presence that silences rooms and makes people lean in. "My name is Marcus Reynolds," he said. "I'm the CEO of Pinnacle Airlines. I own 30% of this company." Gasps rippled across the rows. A woman up front covered her mouth. Someone else whispered, "Oh my God!" Claire dropped the napkin she was folding. Sarah's eyes went wide. Even Liam froze. "I boarded this flight in a hoodie and jeans to see if the complaints I've been getting were true," Marcus continued. "Turns out, they were worse than I thought." His voice was calm, but the words cut like a blade. "My boarding pass was torn up. My ID and platinum card were called fake. I was labeled a fraud. Not once did any of them check the system or even ask my name." He turned his gaze toward the cockpit. "They were too busy trying to get rid of me." Just then, his earpiece clicked. "Marcus, it's Lauren," came the soft voice of his assistant. "Elena just confirmed we've got the 9 a.m. meeting locked in for tomorrow morning. Full board, full legal, full HR. She's already seen the videos and recordings." "Good," Marcus said. "Let her know I'll be ready. She says thank you for exposing this personally." Lauren added, "And the press team is prepping for after landing." "We'll do this right," Marcus replied, then turned back to the cabin. "I want to thank every passenger here who stood up, spoke out, or simply told the truth. You didn't just protect me. You protected the values this airline claims to stand for." He turned to Ava, still standing near his side. "And I especially want to thank Ava Brooks, who didn't stay quiet. This trainee stood taller than anyone else wearing a uniform today. I plan to see that recognized." Ava's cheeks flushed. Claire muttered something under her breath and took a step back. "Tomorrow," Marcus continued, "we will hold a formal meeting at our Atlanta headquarters. There will be accountability. There will be terminations. There will be change. This doesn't get swept under the rug." James lifted his phone again. "Can I get that on record?" Marcus nodded. "Absolutely. The passengers on this plane deserve transparency, and so does every customer we serve. What happened here today is not acceptable, and it will not happen again." Someone up front started clapping. Another joined in. Within seconds, a wave of applause swept through first class. Not loud, not forced, just a steady rhythm of approval and relief. Ryan finally emerged from the cockpit, eyes narrowed, face flushed. "Sir, I had no idea who you were." "You shouldn't have needed to," Marcus said without missing a beat. "Respect shouldn't be tied to a name on a shareholder list." Ryan took a step closer. "We can talk after we land." "We will," Marcus said. "In front of the board." Ryan's face paled. Claire stepped forward, forcing a smile. "Mr. Reynolds, if there was a misunderstanding—" "It wasn't a misunderstanding," Marcus interrupted. "You made assumptions. You judged based on appearance. And when you got caught, you tried to cover it up." Claire opened her mouth. But before she could say anything, Sarah blurted out, "We were following the captain's lead." Claire turned on her instantly. "Sarah!" "No!" Sarah snapped, panic in her voice. "I'm not going down alone. He told us to clear the seat for Elizabeth Harrison and not ask questions. That's the truth." The cabin went still. All eyes turned to Ryan. "You gave the order?" Marcus asked. Ryan stammered. "I was told by scheduling that she was a priority passenger." "So you overruled a paid, ticketed, verified first-class customer because a white woman was more convenient?" Marcus's voice never rose, but no one mistook it for anything but fury held tight. Sarah continued, voice cracking. We've done it before, swapped seats, reassigned economy passengers who didn't look right. We forged the logs. Captain knew, James whispered. You're confessing. On camera. Marcus nodded slowly. Thank you for your honesty. Sarah, that'll help the investigation. Ryan turned to Claire, who now looked like she was standing on thin ice over deep water. We're not all bad, she said weakly. You're not all anything. Marcus replied. But when bias is ignored, it spreads. That's why tomorrow won't just be about punishment. It'll be about reform. Then he turned to the cabin again. I know some of you have early meetings, connections, places to be. I'm sorry your flight started like this. If you choose to file a complaint, I support you. If you already posted a video, thank you. You didn't know who I was, but you stood up anyway. That matters. Passengers nodded, a few reaching out to shake his hand, others just quietly watching, processing. Ava leaned in, voice soft. I recorded all of it. The moment Claire tore the pass, the galley comments, even the log edits. It's saved to a secure file. You did good, Marcus told her. You stood for what was right, not what was easy. James showed Marcus his phone. 15,000 views and counting. The world's watching. Good, Marcus said, meeting his eyes. Let them. And with that, he sat back down in 2A, not as a man who'd just won a fight, but as a leader already thinking about the work still ahead. The passengers returned to their seats. The cabin exhaled, and somewhere overhead, the plane leveled out, finally flying toward a landing none of them would ever forget. The plane had calmed, but the shift in energy was unmistakable. The tension that once pulsed through the first-class cabin had been replaced with quiet realization. Marcus Reynolds sat back in 2A, not just a passenger anymore, not just a CEO, but the man who had pulled the curtain back on a culture of bias and exposed it in real time. He leaned slightly to one side, tapped the mic on his collar, and spoke with calm precision. Lauren, where are we on the meeting? His assistant answered promptly. Confirmed for 9 a.m. Tomorrow at HQ, Elena's bringing in HR, legal, ops, and media relations. They've all reviewed the videos. They're ready. Marcus nodded to himself. Good. Secure a private room for me at the terminal when we land. I want a quick debrief with Elena before we face the board. Already done, Lauren replied. And Ava's audio files are uploaded, encrypted, time-stamped, and backed up. Marcus looked over at Ava, who sat 2 rows down. She looked nervous, but steady. You did the right thing, he told her. And it matters. You saw something wrong and said something. That's rare. Claire, standing near the galley, scoffed under her breath. She's barely out of training. Marcus didn't even turn to her. And yet, she's the only one here who acted with any integrity. Claire fell silent. Just behind Marcus, James Rivera leaned forward, phone in hand. Video just passed 20,000 views. No tags. It's running on truth alone. Truth has reach, Marcus said, voice even. And we're not hiding from it. After we land, there's going to be a press event. We don't spin this. We confront it. Liam Carter, the security officer, stepped into view. He looked different now, shoulders less rigid, tone less combative. I was wrong, he said plainly. I got caught up in the moment. I should have looked harder, asked questions instead of assuming. Marcus studied him for a second. It's not about whether you got it wrong. It's about what you do now. You want to fix it? Liam nodded. I do. Then show up tomorrow, Marcus said. Because this meeting isn't just for firing people. It's for retraining, rebuilding. If you're willing to change, there's a seat for you. Liam exhaled. Thank you. Sarah, still sitting stiffly with her arms crossed, looked over at Claire. We made it worse. All of us. We thought we were just following the captain's lead, but we went along with it. No questions. Just assumptions. Claire mumbled something about protocol, but it held no weight now. The damage had been done, and Marcus had every receipt. Tomorrow's about more than discipline, he said. It's about honesty, about pulling every rotten policy into the light. Lauren chimed in again through his earpiece. Press invite going out as soon as the wheels touch down. Elena approved a public apology. Do you want to give it yourself? Yes, Marcus said without hesitation. This company bears my name. This flight bears my stain. The apology should come from me. The flight attendant up front finally made a general announcement about descent into New York. Standard script. But everyone in that cabin knew this wasn't a standard landing. This was the start of a reckoning. Ava leaned over quietly. I've never seen anyone do what you did. Not like that. Marcus gave a half smile. It shouldn't have taken this much to get people to see what's been happening all along. She nodded. Tomorrow's a start. Yes, he said. A real one. And as the plane dipped toward JFK, Marcus didn't feel triumphant. He felt focused, resolved. He hadn't just reclaimed his seat. He was reclaiming his company's soul. The next morning at 9 a.m. sharp, the top floor of Pinnacle Airlines Atlanta headquarters was quiet, but heavy with anticipation. Marcus Reynolds entered the boardroom in a dark suit. No hoodie this time, but the same unshakable purpose in his stride. Elena Torres, managing director, greeted him with a firm nod. Around the long table sat HR, legal, communications, and operations, all waiting. But Marcus didn't start with formalities. He began with the truth. Yesterday, your own employees tried to humiliate a paying first-class passenger based on how he looked, he said. That passenger was me. Then he played the audio. Claire's sneers, Ryan's profiling remarks, Sarah's mocking laugh, the forged log. No one looked away. After that, he played Ava's recordings, the honesty, the courage, the moment the cabin turned. When it ended, the room was still. Elena cleared her throat. Based on the recordings and confessions, effective immediately, Claire Morgan, Sarah Bennett, and Captain Ryan Walsh are terminated. They will not be eligible for rehire. Liam Carter will be placed on 6 months probation with full inclusion training and direct oversight. Ava Brooks is to be promoted to a permanent role with commendation. Marcus nodded. That's just the beginning. He walked to the windows overlooking the city and paused. We're initiating a full audit of all cabin crew conduct logs. We're opening up a direct passenger feedback channel. And no more hidden seat swaps based on priority passengers who just happen to fit a certain look. He turned back to the group. This isn't about one flight. It's about a culture, and we're going to change it. A few hours later, Marcus stood before a wall of cameras at Pinnacle's public media atrium. Reporters waited. Passengers tuned in live. He stepped up to the mic. No script, just honesty. I want to personally apologize to every passenger who watched what happened on Flight 256, and to everyone who ever felt unseen or unheard on one of our planes. He said, I built this company to make flying fairer, but bias doesn't care about your title. It'll come for you anyway. He paused. I wasn't CEO in that moment. I was just a black man in a hoodie who dared to sit in his rightful seat. That shouldn't have to be brave. But yesterday, it was... The cameras flashed, reporters scribbled, but the room was still. I want to thank the passengers who stood up, the ones who said, enough. And I want to thank Ava Brooks, who spoke truth to power while wearing a trainee badge. She reminded us that the uniform doesn't define your strength. Your character does. He nodded to Ava, standing nearby, eyes red but proud. Our reforms begin today. Crew retraining, policy transparency, and a new zero-tolerance rule for bias at every level of this company. No exceptions. As he stepped down from the podium, a few passengers from that flight approached him. Some shook his hand. Others just said, "Thank you." Liam Carter stood in the back of the room, out of uniform now, waiting his turn. When Marcus saw him, he walked over. Liam took a breath. "Thank you for giving me a chance to learn." Marcus extended a hand. "Prove me right." Later that afternoon, Elena handed Marcus a report from the ethics hotline. A former crew member had come forward, confessing that Ryan Walsh had a history of reassigning seats based on appearance. Often under the excuse of safety, regional leadership had looked the other way. That was the final piece. "We'll clean house there too," Marcus said, 3 months later. Pinnacle Airlines had launched a full equity compliance department. Anonymous reports had tripled, but so had resolution rates. And Marcus? He made it personal. He flew every month, unannounced, in coach, in hoodies and jeans, just watching, listening. And every time he looked at 2A, he remembered what it felt like to be told, "You don't belong," and how it felt to say, "Yes, I do."